on the clean, what I'd want to see is getting the knees a little bit more forward, and the hip, and then therefore this will help you get your hips a little bit more forward and more underneath the bar a little. So in this, let's have a look at where he pauses. So yeah, here what I'd want is to get your knees a little bit more forward, hips a little bit further back, just so you've got a little bit more lower body to use. And we want to create we want to keep the axle balanced in where it's connected to the torso, whilst flexing at the ankles, knees, and hips, because that's the thing that we want to produce power. Because if we get the ankles, knees, and hips producing power, then it's not all about max power, it's all about where the direction of the force is going. So if we could use ankles, knees, and hips to flex whilst keeping a vertical torso, pretty much, we're going to be able to send the weight vertically and produce force vertically. Whereas if we get, it's pretty good, but I just feel it can be better, and basically load the legs a little bit more in this position here, have a little bit more bend at the legs, because the more upright you are, the more that you require on back extension and basically leaning back to produce the force. So let's just go back here. Let's have a look at this position. Right, so there is his foot fully extended here, because he hasn't got much range of motion in terms of the power from the legs. So what happens is when you run out of this range of motion is you find that power from back extension and kind of extra hip extension, which the big issue there is when you're using more back extension and hip extension in terms of that vertical power, you send in a lot of the power forward, which is going to contribute to the bar looping forward, and then you run into all kinds of problems in terms of receiving. So even though this is a submaximal weight, I think this is something that you could definitely try and iron out. And then in terms of the press, so the dip looks really good actually, but let's look where he received. So look here. So have a look at this next one. So what he's kind of doing, he's kind of like somewhere between a jerk and a press. So what I'd do is I'd decide I'd commit to whichever one that you're doing. I'd focus more on more on the jerk, where you're focusing on, if you focus on the jerk, focus on receiving as a non-negotiable with the submaximal stuff, but building up as a non-negotiable. You should be feeling like you're catching at lockout. You should be feeling like when the bar's weight, you're locking out fully under a weightless bar and then standing back up. So whether this requires more flex at the legs, whether you need to get underneath it more, whether you can power jerk and jump out a little bit more, find that position, because you're actually receiving it there with the elbows a little bit bent, which you are getting a little bit of a benefit from, because you're just making where you're using your arms to lock out like a shorter range of motion. But realistically, when you're getting up to your maximal weight, say you're getting up to your 140s or whatever, that's just going to be enough weight to send you back down. Whereas if you catch it at lockout, you're gonna be able to make it stick. Or just do some working on the push press, where because the advantage of working on the push press is, instead of getting distracted, because when you're timing a jerk, what you've got to do is time finishing the drive in terms of extension into transitioning into the receiving position of the catch. So you're almost like most of us will be sacrificing the drive power somewhat, because we'll be thinking about the timing of the thing coming later on. So actually, if you do a little bit of dedicated jerk work, dedicated to actually receiving underneath the bar, like say as your warm-up sets, and then some dedicated just full send push presses where you focus on being super explosive and not rebending the knee, you're just exploding through the legs and sending it with as much power as physically possible to make the jerk better. Like I feel that these are going to both be better options than the middle ground that you're at the minute. So you can see on the clean here that it's this thing again where the bar's looping forward. Let's have a look at the pop. So the pop's pretty good. It's moving under the bar really nicely. But you can see that subtle loop forward that's just costing him more energy to receive the weight than it needs to be. So especially when he's got no elbow sleeves on, you've got no, and you're showing that you've got a good rack position. Like in terms of flexibility, here I think he can get his elbows more forward, and elbows more, instead of being behind the bar, elbows more over the bar, which in turn is going to allow more internal rotation of the shoulder, and therefore allow you to keep the bar closer without looping out. So you may find this better using a belt, if you're going to belt clean, a belt with, like, say maybe a buckle at the front to because it can afford you to get that position with your shoulders more over the bar a little bit without the bar sliding off it. So you might be able to use the buckle to stop the bar sliding off. And also another thing to play with a belt clean, you may find that having the belt a little bit looser and a little bit lower, you may find that actually beneficial, because then it's going to connect the bar to a position. You're going to trade it for a little bit of stability, but because it's not going to feel quite as tight, but you're going to trade it for the bar being in a lower position and reducing the moment arm between the bar and the hips, which is obviously the thing producing force. So you'll just feel instantly more powerful. Let's have a look at the rack position. Looks great, by the way. Really, really good. I like the elbow position. A lot of people make the error of trying to get the arms too high, elbows pointing forward like a front squat rack position. This rack position is great. The dip's really good, actually. But you can just see that his elbows start to drop as he begins the drive. So I suspect that just trying to keep that, if that torso is maybe, say, I don't know, 87 degrees or something, getting it closer to sorry, the torso angle is like, say, perpendicular to the floor, almost like, say, what, 175 degrees. Getting it closer to 180 degrees will throughout the dip and drive will inevitably help you and stop the elbows dropping. Another little thing that you can see that he's doing ever so slightly is creating a disconnect. So that was enough for him to. The reason why he lost that final clean, even though like I was surprised that he missed it, was because it's just looping out in front, just a little bit too much. So let's go here. You can see that he's just creating a little bit of a disconnect with his torso, and what we should be doing is finish it regardless of whether we push press or jerk. We should be exploding through the legs, keeping the arms relaxed, because the arms relaxed are making the bar be at one with the torso and keep you connected to the thing that's producing force. But you shouldn't be. What we should be doing is extending through the legs explosively, so ankles, knees, and hips maximally extending, and then the bar should leave the body, and then probably when the bar's usually at, say, chin height, eye height for different people, whatever, then for the final bit, punching up into the bar to help us push our body underneath the bar, or if it's a push press, to finish off the rep and get it to the point where the triceps can take over to finish the rep. But you can see what he's doing here. He's going a little bit too early, which he's pushing up into the bar before he's extended fully into the legs, and he's just basically putting too much tension for his upper body. So all his whole body tension. It's just an inefficient way to use your energy bank account. So what I don't like here is he's connecting to the. I know how strong Tom is, and I feel like he could just take his breath at the top like a dip, grip, and rip deadlift kind of thing, and just go and pick it up instead of feeling for the weight, taking his breath, and then dropping his hips. I just feel like you're wasting energy down at that bottom position. So what is good? A nice little pop. I like the way that the belt's low, so he doesn't need to pop it that high to get underneath it. Excellent. I like this position here. Really like this position here, considering it's a maximal weight. Elbows are, if we look from the side, his elbows are almost in line with his pecs, where you see a lot of people pointing their elbows back, which are giving them a really tough task in this turnover and making them really, really difficult to keep the bar close. Where you can see in Tom's case, he receives a clean pretty damn well into a nice rack position. Yeah, an excellent jerk. So you can see what Tom does really well. He keeps connected that's the bottom of the dip. He's opened up his ankles, knees, and hips really nicely, and he's connected to the axle. So when he drives up now, he's driving his torso into that bar, and you can see that the punch is coming after he's finished the drive into the bar. The punch with the upper body, sorry, and that's why it's a nice, easy jerk. I'm not a fan of this position here. His elbows are too far back. I feel like he's going to basically distribute his center of mass forward a little bit, and therefore give himself more opportunity to use his legs to produce that vertical power to help with the turnover. Because I feel like that he's just having to lean back to turn that clean over, and it's just going to get to a point where he's okay at this weight, he's managing, but it's just going to get to either really deep into a set and it's just going to smoke him, or he's just going to get to the point where he's failing his clean before his press. So that's something to work on. Find the rack position with your shoulders a little bit more forward over the bar, and basically get more bend at the hips, knees, and ankles to send that power vertically up. And you can see as he turns it over, he's really using his back extension to finish the rep. The rack position looks great, really good. So he's well connected here. So pretty much finishing the drive, a good press. So what I would say, his overhead stability looks really, really good. A really nice push press. I would notice that his arms look really quite long, but he's got a really good rack position and he's got a really good overhead position with his joints stacked. So I think that you'll be a really good candidate to, I think you'll pick up the benefits of jerking really quickly. And I feel that I feel like the jerk's a really good option for people with long arms, providing they've got good overhead stability and good rack position, because it's taking the arms out of the equation somewhat. Because instead of getting to the point where you're doing a max push press and you're just at the point where your dip and drive's really good, but you're just in a position where you've got such a massive range of motion to use your upper body to finish the rep through. Whereas with a jerk, once you finish that perfect dip and drive, you can just maneuver under the bar and catch. And another little trick that you could use on a jerk, which wouldn't be so helpful on a push press because it put your arms in such a weak position to produce force with your upper body, is actually taking like a significantly wider grip. Because you take a wider grip, you look at, say, some long arm weightlifters who'll use the tactic of taking a wide grip because it'll shorten the range of motion. So if you get used to actually getting used to the dip and drive just being a lower body thing where you're connected and you don't need your upper body so much to help you, and then the jerk or the catch, yeah, I think this is something to explore, definitely. I just feel like he's got too much of his body weight behind the bar. From this position here, as he's going to turn over the clean, the bar is having to loop forward because the power that he's generating to that bar is sending it forward by the hips coming forward a little bit more, but running out of range of motion quickly and then going into a back extension. So I feel like finding a position with your shoulders more over the bar in that rack position is going to be really helpful. So if you're not allowed to belt clean in your country or whatever, you could use a grip top, and so use a continental clean with the grip top that'll help you find the shoulders forward, or trying to get the weight, whereas your weight through your heels now, trying to find more towards your toes or at least mid-foot with your elbows more over the bar is going to put your ankles, knees and hips in a position where they can actually contribute to this rather than just using your back, which is obviously going to give you more power, but also it's going to mean that the force is going more vertical here. So before even watching this, I can imagine that it's looping forward, even though the weight doesn't look too challenging for him. Let's move on to the press. So the press looks fantastic, but it just looks like he's just fatigued. That dip and drive is excellent. So what we're essentially trying to find, which may help you understand it better, is this dip and drive, right? Look at this dip and drive here, where he's keeping a vertical torso, hips, knees, ankles, beautiful contribution to the power into the bar. Just absolutely brilliant. That's exactly what we're going for, regardless of whether push pressing or jerking. So this is great. So we're trying to find that position on the clean when the bar is connected to the torso. So I actually feel that if you're allowed to belt clean, pop into the belt with the belt buckle at the front, and actually using the belt buckle as a kind of braking mechanism will allow you to stand in that rack position with your weight towards your toes a little bit more, which will obviously allow you to clean more efficiently and turn over more efficiently. Yeah, good stuff. I do believe that you're very strong push presser, but I do believe that the push jerks are going to be really beneficial. Really good. It's looping forward a little bit. It's that clean that's sapping him of energy. So nice little pop. I like that. Right. So what we want to find is in this position here. That looks pretty good. But I would say, if you want to make this better, I would say that you try your feet a little bit wider, and that'll allow your knees to open up and open up your hips a little bit more, and that'll allow you just to get that slight bigger range of motion at the ankles, knees and hips, and a little bit more power without sacrificing the integrity of the vertical torso. Another thing that I'd suggest would be trying a buckle belt instead of the SBD belt, because you say you get to the point really deep into the set, or you're going for a max clean, for instance, a maximal weight, and you're wanting just that extra degree of power, and you dip in that tiny bit lower. With the SBD belt, it's potentially going to slide off. So I think considering wearing a buckle belt, where you can almost use the belt buckle as a brake to hold the weight behind, can allow you to load that midfoot a little bit more on the clean. That looks pretty good, by the way, but it's how we can make it even more efficient. A nice pop. It's pretty good, but it's crashing a little bit just because it's looping forward. The push press looks great. Yeah, nice work. Yeah. And I think being strategic with these, so he did 110 for 5 here, Mark did. So I suspect that, and sometimes he split jerks in training. Whereas I reckon, you see that, like that rep that he was kind of grinding out here, it's just really hard work. Whereas with a jerk, obviously, he was doing a split jerk. It costs you a little bit more energy in terms of time under tension to recover the jerk, etc. But you've got plenty of time. Like, say, for instance, next time you do 110, go for 6 reps and just split jerk it. And just split jerk it. If you want to try some training sets, just do like between 90 and 100 kilos. Just going for 6 reps in 60 seconds and pace yourself. Don't rush it. Don't let yourself blow out. And yeah, I think that's going to be an easy way to get you to 6 and 7 reps is just by split jerking, because the reps you're just going to get to that catch position more efficiently rather than grinding out a rep. Yeah. So I love what Dan's doing here in terms of his popping it up. Yeah, lovely combo. So let's see what Dan's doing really well here. What I really like about Dan is that the elbow position is he's keeping his elbows forward. Yeah, so he's keeping at the bottom of the dip here in terms of the belt queen. His ankles, knees, and hips are flexed, so he's got power in the lower body that he's using, but his upper body he's putting in a position where his shoulders can internally rotate nicely, and therefore he's got the power, but also the upper body positioning to keep the bar close. And therefore, that's why that receiving position is just so easy. He's not having to save it from coming towards him. He's just literally turning it over. And that's why when you can catch it in the weightless position, you can even progress your skill to what Dan's doing here, is if you catch in that position there, you're actually at the bottom of a perfect, providing it isn't coming back nor forwards and it's weightless, you're actually in the perfect position to drive up for the push press or the jerk in Dan's case. And that's why you can send up. So it looks really skillful, but it's actually just because he's keeping the clean so close, he's giving himself the opportunity to do that, and it's actually just really easy. And it feels like you're cheating if you get the timing of this right. So great work, Dan. It's all coming from this positioning with the clean, because it gives him that opportunity to keep it close. So the pop's good. The bottom of the dip's really good here. I would like those elbows a little bit further forward and the shoulders less behind the bar, but I feel like, again, maybe using a belt with a belt buckle can help you achieve this a little bit more, because you can stop the bar sliding off by catching it behind the belt buckle. But in terms of power, the positioning's good. I would just like the shoulders a little bit more forward, because the shoulders a little bit behind the bar and the elbows pointing backwards a little bit. Then it's causing this looping effect, and that's why it's coming back and crashing down on him a little bit rather than just turning over weightlessly. And then when it's a maximal weight here, that's enough for it. Just looks pretty heavy before he even starts anything here. It looks heavy because he's giving himself a tough clean. So I feel that tidying the clean up and making it feel lighter in the rack can be really, really helpful. Let's have a look at the dip and drive. So that looks really good. I like this dip and drive. Yeah, he's really nice connected. Elbows aren't dropping. So what he's doing here, ever so slightly, and why he's getting caught there, is what he's doing on the dip and drive is he's not finishing the drive properly. He's actually getting about, he's exploding into it pretty well. And then just before he's finishing the drive with the lower body, he's pushing up with the arms. So I would say just be a little bit more patient before you bring the arms into play, just to make sure that the bar's in an awesome position connected to you're keeping that moment arm low, as low as possible, but in terms of keeping the bar connected to the powerful thing that's, i.e. the lower body. So if you're being a bit too eager and pushing into the bar early, you're creating that disconnect and therefore not using the lower body power quite as much. So before he's already pushing up with the arms there and jumping into the split before he's finished the drive. Yeah. Let's see if we can catch it there. It's pretty good, actually. It is pretty good, even. I would just say be a little bit more intent on that drive before you punch up with the arms. So this is the next attempt at it. Yeah, you can see that he's just pushing into the bar a little bit too early. So that's going to be a game changer, is actually focusing on driving instead of thinking about pushing your arms into the bar. Think about driving your shoulders into the axle by using your leg drive, and then that'll propel the axle up. And then once it's up, and you've got no more legs to give, then punch. A little bit better, but you can still see that he's going early. But well done for making the lift.